Welcome to CineCynics.
I'm Mark.
I'm Craig.
And guess what, folks? Arnold's back, as he always said he would be. Liam Neeson is set to star in Run All Night, about a mob hitman who in one night has to save his family and estranged son from his former boss and ends up on the run from the mob and the authorities.
I have to say I'm really excited about this because I don't think I've ever seen Liam Neeson in a mob type role. At least I can't recall anything. So it sounds pretty cool.
Well, except the movie with Patrick Swayze from the 80s where he plays his estranged hillbilly brother and ends up on the wrong side of the Sicilian mob in Tennessee, of all places, I think. But he seems to have accrued quite a...
action persona.
Yeah.
He's doing a lot of action stuff.
So I think he'll slip right into it, and I also look forward to seeing this.
So it's been rumored that Robert Zemeckis' Romancing the Stone might be remade. Probably him attached as a producer. Because there hasn't been too much news about it.
You know, I really enjoyed the original Romancing the Stone, and I thought the way it was cast with Michael Douglas, Kathleen Turner, and Danny DeVito, was perfect as it was. I don't really see a necessity for this remake. I'm still interested to see what Zemeckis would do, but as it stands, I think it's,
Well, also, it's a rumor. It might not happen. He said that's the only project of his that might actually go forward, and they're in the process of maybe doing it.
Yeah.
I have an opinion about people remaking movies. I think it's stupid, especially if the original was so good. I never actually saw the original, but...
And finally, the trailer for Red 2, the anticipated sequel to the original, has just been released.
This looks really good. It looks like they're keeping the same tone, the same comedic tone. Everybody in it is so good in the movie. And now Catherine Zeta-Jones is joined as Bruce Willis's old flame. Obviously, back in the clandestine times when he was working for the CIA, and also Anthony Hopkins, and it's kind of an unknown character right now because there wasn't really anything in the trailer with Anthony Hopkins in it except for like a picture.
One brief, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought the original Red was pretty astounding. I'm really looking forward to this, and I can't wait to see what they do with Anthony Hopkins. Personally, I think he takes these roles that are, kind of a cakewalk for him for his particular acting talents, but it's always fun to see him in these sort of things because it always looks like he actually has fun doing them. So I can't wait to see him in it. In recognition of Arnold Schwarzenegger's full return to action cinema, it seemed only right that on this edition of Watch It, I recommend the film that solidified the place of Conan the Republican as the greatest action star of all time, Terminator 2: Judgment Day. Directed by James Cameron, the film also stars Linda Hamilton, Edward Furlong, and Robert Patrick. T2 opens up 11 years after the events of The Terminator, in which a cyborg from a post-apocalyptic future played by Schwarzenegger is sent back through time in order to kill Sarah Connor, the mother-to-be of John Connor, the leader of the human resistance against Skynet, a cybernetic intelligence bent on destroying all of mankind. This time around, Skynet sends back another cyborg to kill John Connor himself before he can later rise to lead the fight against the machines. The catch is, this second Terminator, played by Robert Patrick, is made up of a futuristic liquid alloy that allows it to take the form of anything or anyone it touches, with the exception of complex machines like bombs or firearms. However, the future John Connor, ever vigilant, sends back a reprogrammed older model Terminator to protect himself against this new threat. And in this, we see the return of Arnold, now in the role of protector instead of aggressor. The action legacy of Terminator 2 is already a well-storied legend without me having to defend it, but I'll quickly add that it's all that and more. T2 represents director James Cameron at his very best as a storyteller and artist of the visual medium. The jaw-dropping action set pieces and groundbreaking computer-generated visuals set the stage for every blockbuster movie that followed it. And for all that, it still had at its core a believably well-written story that was deeply human and gave the viewers something to honestly care about, apart from the set dressing and amazing special effects. Hollywood has since given us two utterly disappointing and contrived sequels which accomplished nothing but to diminish the brilliance of the original two films. The story of the Terminator was supposed to end with T2, and unless given a better reason, that's exactly how one should view the series. Forget everything unworthy that followed after it, and watch the stirring and epic conclusion as it was supposed to be seen.
Total Recall, directed by Paul Verhoeven, stars the one and only Arnold Schwarzenegger as Douglas Quaid, a construction worker with fantasies of Mars. He then goes to a company called Recall to implant memories to make his fantasy become a reality. But things soon take a turn for the worst. While on the run from forces sent by a man named Cohagen, he soon figures out a corporate conspiracy and his own identity. And just looking at how everything was done practically in this movie, it reminds me of a time when film was made with a lot of effort and talent, unlike the recent Total Recall remake, which I absolutely hate. I love Colin Farrell, but that was a piece of fluff that had no substance that the original had. If you want to watch one of Arnold's best, see Total Recall. It's a great representation of a truly entertaining 90s sci-fi action flick that meant to have fun and did just that. Arnold Schwarzenegger stars in The Last Stand, directed by Jae-woon Kim, about a small-town sheriff and his deputies taking on an escaped Mexican drug lord trying to cross the border back into his own country.
So the first thing that became clear to me about The Last Stand was its impressive level of action.
Oh yeah, the just the blood and the gunfire, and like it was so visceral. Like it really felt good. And he definitely did a really good job with the way it was shot. The action felt very fast-paced. It wasn't jittery like Bourne Identity. You know, you actually could see the action happening, and it felt like an old-style type of action movie in that sense.
And it incorporated a lot of Western elements into it, as well as even though it's an action movie, it still qualifies, I think, somewhat as being in the Western genre. And Jae-woon Kim, I thought, brought his expertise from his Asian action cinema background to bear here in this American film, in this American action film, and it translated very well.
Yeah, he did The Good, the Bad, and the Weird, which was this epic Western told in Manchuria, China during the war.
Late 1930s.
And it was just this big, epic, sweeping movie. This was a lot smaller, but he still brought that sense of style to the movie, especially with the car scenes. If you noticed with the car scenes, some people do not know how to do car chases or anything like that. It's just evident that the cars feel slow. It doesn't feel like you're with the car. You just feel very distant from what the action is happening on screen. But when you saw this car revving up and going past the camera, it felt fast.
Yeah, and I think apart from the expertise shown by Kim, that the sound was also mixed very well, so you had a lot of bass and reverberations, and so all those scenes where you felt visually the sense of speed, it was also backed up.
Oh yeah, it was crisp and clean.
Yeah,
like when he kicked it into gear, it was like
you felt like you were sitting right in the
you
cockpit
rumbled
of the car
when that happened.
Yeah. Now, I also saw The Good, the Bad, and the Weird, and admittedly, like a lot of modern Asian cinema, it left me a little bit confused. Now, that might just be me, but what was very clear from watching it that this was an extremely competent director. And you saw the same things here in The Last Stand with the way that he filmed all the action sequences.
Yes, and the whole town sequence with them barricading all of the main street and them getting
The Last
Stand.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it was corny to me, but it was kind of like a good corn, good cheese in the movie when they all were getting the guns ready and loaded, and they were like, yeah, we're gonna get some.
Yeah.
Like, I can appreciate that because that happens a lot in older 90s action movies.
And also reminiscent of the late era, beginning 1960 spaghetti westerns as well. A lot, the final showdown sequence.
So, and everything was practical. Not a lot of people can say that in today's action cinema, especially even in Expendables 2. There was a lot of CG in that movie. Yeah. With this, I couldn't believe how many scenes were all practically done, and you can tell that they were practical, except for maybe there was the end sequence. There was just like a long shot of a canyon. That wasn't real. That was CG. You could tell that. But for the most part, most of the action and explosions, they were practical.
Yeah,
which is cool.
This movie also had a lot of good actors in it as well. I mean, apart from Arnold himself, you also had Forrest Whitaker which I thought was good as this, you know, the FBI G-man, you know, bureau chief or whatever.
He was okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for what they gave him, I mean, being an Academy Award winning actor, I mean, he did do a very competent job. And also Peter Stormare, yeah, as the villain, doing a flawless southwestern American, you know, southern/southwestern American
He sounded
accent.
like a Swedish guy trying to put on a Western accent.
I don't think so. I thought he was very good. I was convinced, and you know, the whole he played the whole classic Western villain to the nines.
Yeah, I mean, I liked him. I'm just saying some of it was funny because like you could hear his Swedish accent coming out and then some of his dialogue, and that's what kind of made it funny for me because he was trying to put on this Western accent.
Maybe I mean, I have to be honest. I didn't really notice that. I mean, there were some lines, but I think it was deliberate. But he had some great ones as well, and I mean, the way that he delivered it was really funny.
And talking about really great lines, Arnold. Obviously, you go to see this movie for Arnold.
Yeah.
So you expect him to just deliver these great one-liners. I think he did that for the most part, for me at least. He definitely did a good job of giving his Arnold performance.
You know, I mean, I guess some people might say that, I mean, you know, this is his first return in, like, what, you know, almost 10 years.
Except for Expendables 2.
Yeah, but, I mean...
That wasn't really
it was
a big role.
You know, a brief cameo. This is his first return to a leading action role. And, I mean, I thought he did a very good job of getting right back into it. I think, I mean, and as good as this was, I think... Now, you know, with age and seasoning, he's only going to get better with other movies that he does from here. And he was very enjoyable.
He definitely he played that, too, in his character, how he was old and everything. And they even put it in some of his dialogue. But for I think he had a certain way of playing the role that you don't see a lot of older action stars do because they're not owning up to their age.
This was a little bit more of a vulnerable character than Arnold is used to playing in the past. But I think he did this very well. And like Craig said, not a lot of action stars, aging ones, seem to really own up to their age.
Sylvester Stallone.
Well, maybe. But Arnold definitely did a good job of bringing that element into this and to show that, you know, he isn't the same, you know, late 30s, 40-year-old guy that we saw in, you know, Terminator 2 or... you know, Eraser and all the other great James Cameron action flicks, and even the ones from the 80s. Like, he is older now, and he did a good job of like, making you realize that, but yet, at the same time...
He was extremely badass.
Yeah, it's still... he still made it known. Like, when the shit hit the fan, like, this was the same old Arnold, like, busting heads and blowing people's...
Shooting a shotgun without even aiming it, and he's perfect, like...
Yeah, blowing people's faces off. Like, it was outstanding to behold again.
One thing that I noticed about this movie was there was a couple of missteps with Arnold's delivery, and I kind of want to blame it on the editing more so than Arnold, but... Even if it's cheesy and corny of a line, like, I expect Arnold to just deliver the crap out of it and just make it good, even though it's a really bad piece of dialogue. But there was a moment in the movie that just really did not feel good. It felt kind of flat, and it just didn't feel like he was putting all of his effort into it. And it just felt awkward in the moment, which I'll blame the awkwardness on the actual editing of the scene, because I think it could have been a little bit snappier with the edit when he delivered that line. But I don't know. And then there was just some other things where I think, yes, he got back right into it, but at the same time, like in Expendables 2, he's a little bit rusty at it. You know, years and years of doing politics, like, I know you're supposed to put on a political persona, but I think he almost lost a little bit of that. But I think this is kind of a good way of him transitioning into the next movie, where he's gonna be him. Like, yeah. I will have no complaints about it whatsoever, and he will be Arnold in the next movie he's in.
I mean, I personally think that when you look at all of his back history of movies, his whole, you know, his whole history of films and everything that he's done, you know, it's Arnold. And you go to see an Arnold movie because it's Arnold, you know, and sometimes you do have these pieces of dialogue, but he always sells it because of his screen presence. I mean, even the character itself, I mean, no one believes when they give Arnold on screen a name like Ray Owens, people aren't going to see a story about Ray Owens. People are going to see a story about Arnold.
Playing Ray Owens.
And that's the same situation here.
So one thing that I didn't really like too much about this movie was there was a lot of forgettable side characters. Yes, they're there for the comedic element of the movie, but I can list off, there was a bunch of different characters from other Arnold Schwarzenegger movies that I can remember more fondly, like Benny from Total Recall, and Richter, played by Michael Ironside from Total Recall. Miles Dyson, who was in Terminator 2. I like having a memorable side character that I can go and make. You can make a movie reference and someone will understand because they were just that good of a side character, you know. And you can with this movie, I just didn't really feel the same way as in other Arnold movies. About these characters, you know?
I have to disagree. Yes, maybe these characters seem a little bit one-dimensional. I wouldn't necessarily call them forgettable just yet, as this movie just came out. So you have to give it some time and to let audiences appreciate it a little bit more. But also at the same time, I think in this kind of movie, for what they were given, they all did a pretty good job, and they all brought that right amount of heart to each of their own characters, and they all performed their functions well, as you know, serving as the foil and comedic relief to Arnold's seriousness. And of course, Johnny Knoxville is a bit of an acquired taste, as he always plays some rendition of himself. From
clown to clown to clown.
Yeah, some rendition of himself, you know, basically in every movie he's been in. You know, some kind of wacky, maybe dirtbag character, but in that sense, you know, I thought he did his job well.
Emphasis on the dirtbag.
And of course, with this kind of movie, I don't really think it pays to look too deeply into things. It's meant to be taken as it is and enjoyed. And again, in that respect, I think all the characters were particularly enjoyable. So what are your final opinions on this?
You know, with great action, enjoyable action set pieces, some great Arnold dialogue, but there were a few missteps for me, and, you know, a lot of the side characters were kind of unenjoyable, so I'd have to say rent it.
I would say there's enough in it to warrant you going to the theater to see this movie. It's a great action flick with a straightforward, believable plot that's unpretentious. It knows exactly what it is, knows that it's meant to be enjoyed, and it is enjoyable indeed. And of course, the once and future king of action films is back, bitches, so it's time for you to pay homage. If you like CineCynics, rate, comment, and subscribe.
And make sure you watch every Saturday for more movie news, recommendations, and reviews.
And the question we have this week is, what are your favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger movies?